Welcome to the Legal Hour with Bailey and Gallion. We're coming to you today from the Legal Cafe at the corner of Main and First Street in beautiful downtown Fort Worth, just across from the courthouse. And today, J.C. Bailey is with me. He is a vice president at Bailey and Gallion, and he heads up our probate department. And he's always fun to talk to because he's been doing this a while, kind of like I have in family law. And he's pretty much seen most of it, okay? And so, Jay, thanks for being here. I wanted to talk to you about, because we've been doing this for a while, and a lot of folks come in to talk to us, and we offer a free interview at Bailey and Gallion. But a lot of folks come in to talk to us, and some of them need help and some of them don't. But it has occurred to me, and we've talked before, sometimes it's really stressful for the people coming in to ask questions, and they think, come to see a lawyer, it's pretty solemn, and they don't know what to expect. And part of our job is to, one, put them at ease, and two, figure out what in the world it is they're here to talk about. How do you handle folks when they're coming in? What would you recommend for them?
Well, I do a lot of phone conferences just to see if we've got jurisdiction and if it's something that we do and something that we'll be great at, because our goal is to do it as well or better than anybody else and do it at a price point that's reasonable, so we feel great about delivering great service at that price point and the client feels good about it. Although it's a little bit like me shopping for a car or a new set of tires, I have a hard time catching up with what a fair price point on those things can be. But I think the main thing, after they've talked to me, and if I'm telling them, okay, I'm not going to be able to handle that for you, but you do need to reach out, I'll tell them, just tell your story. So first of all, don't try to use the words that you saw online or that a bank teller mentioned to you that may or may not have been misunderstood or mispronounced. Just tell your story. And a good lawyer will be able to ask questions to clarify, to know what kind of help you need and whether or not they can provide that for you. But it reminds me of going to the doctor. I want the doctor to think I've got a modicum of intelligence, and so I try to use words that probably are not appropriate. They're words where I don't need to memorize the bones in my body to tell the doctor, man, my elbow really hurts. And let that professional ferret that out. That's one of the reasons that it's so dangerous to try to do these things yourself. Mm-hmm. Because you look and you say, okay, this is my vocabulary and how I understand this, just like I would with engineering or theology or medicine. I don't know that lingo. And here's what these forms are saying. And now I have to interpret. I don't know what that word means for sure, and so I'm not absolutely sure it applies to me. And so we get I shared with somebody earlier today, we get the downloaded will where we come in and Granny has passed away, and they say, well, Granny didn't want no affidavit. And I'll say, well, I certainly respect your late grandmother for being anti-affidavit. That's an unusual position to take, but I live in a country where you can be free to dislike whatever inanimate objects you want to. And so the problem with that is that was the self-proving affidavit. So now we're trying to track down these witnesses or get handwriting witnesses. We've added, by the way, almost always cleaning up the mistake cost 4 or 5 times what it would cost to have just had it done by somebody who knew what they were doing in the first place.
That's like the Fram oil filter guy. Mm-hmm. Pay me now or pay me later. And I also find, right in line with what you're talking about, sometimes folks are timid about asking questions, kind of like they might be timid at the car dealership. I really do want that backup camera. Is that cost extra? Sure. And they'll hesitate to tell you some critical stuff because they're not sure if they're opening a new can of worms.
Yes. Well, and I am, some people would just say, our friend Bob Blankenship accuses me of being a Luddite, right? That I'm anti-technology. I'm really not. But I handwrite my notes, and part of that is helpful in allowing people time. So as I'm taking a note, because I'll say, well, you know your family better than I do. And then what that form that they downloaded doesn't know to ask is, I've got children and grandchildren, and I've been married for 40 plus years, and so in dealing with all these people, I know a question to ask. Well, I know Sally is your oldest, but is there a possibility, since Sally lives in Amarillo and since Mary lives, in the mid-cities, that Mary might be a better choice for that? I know you told me that Sally was maybe going through some cancer treatments, and so she might not be readily available to be able to help out on a power of attorney. Is there a possibility? But those conversations, while we can't predict the future and we do imperfect estate planning, right? I say that all the time. We're going to do your estate plan in a broken world, and we're going to name mortal folks. We're going to name people who are going to get sick and hurt or die eventually. So we can't perfect this. We're not omniscient, but we can talk about hedging our bet with some insights into the family. We do this all the time. You've got somebody who is not a great candidate right now because they're 25 years of age. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a real possibility that might be your third choice, because these first two choices that are great, we think, for the next 5 or 10 years may not be a great choice 20 years from now. So to build shelf life into the document, you think strategically about how we're going to arrange these things. Again, will it be imperfect? It will be imperfect. But I use this with regard to redundancy. We've got seat belts with shoulder straps, we've got anti-lock brakes, and we've got airbags. Now, I know people that I'm pretty sure would think I'll just put on my seatbelt right before the accident, right? So I'm going to wait and do my estate planning.
Or afterwards
Right.
and say it was on.
Right. Yes. So I could try to figure out how to do that, but if we're going to get out ahead of it so we can do the documents, put them in a safe place, and then not worry about them, then some of this planning is going to need to be redundant in the way that anti-lock brakes and airbags and all the wonderful things we have that make our cars slightly safer. Now, with all that safety equipment, do people still get hurt and actually killed in automobiles? Of course they do. So no matter how good your plan is, if you try to make it last too long, if you don't do any maintenance on it ever, then it can become problematic. But come in, tell your story. Don't have to use any words from a profession that you don't practice. Mm-hmm. And we can almost always figure it out. By the way, if your lawyer's so inexperienced that they can't figure out from your story, might be a good idea to call another lawyer. Because sometimes they'll think they practice in that area, or they've practiced a little in that area.
That's true.
But you really want to come see, you don't want to come see me for family law. You want to come see Keith Spencer.
You don't want to go shopping for the lawyer who will tell you exactly what you want to hear. People will have heard a story from Leroy at the bowling alley about we had a ladybird will to take care of Granny's farm, and they do not have a clue what a ladybird will is, whether it's enforceable. But if you don't know what I'm calling a ladybird will, I'm not sure. It's like the used car salesman or the auto repair guy. Your blue widget's broken. How would I know?
Okay. Beware the anecdote, right?
Amen.
The single story that shapes, for instance, thankfully, I haven't spent a lot of time in the hospital. So my understanding of how it is to be in the hospital is extremely limited. Mm-hmm. It's just that surgical procedure on that one occasion. So if I tell you that Uncle George passed away, you've heard this in family law. My Uncle George passed away in Louisiana in 1967, and I don't think you're telling me the same things. And then you just wait. Hopefully that'll all settle. And he will, if you give him enough time, start thinking, but I guess I'm not my Uncle George, and I'm guessing it's not 1967, and I'm thinking we're no longer in Louisiana, nor Kansas, for that matter. So the anecdote that says, well, this is my experience, or well, I read online that I need such and such, right? I will tell you for a fact, I cannot dance as well as the people in the Ozempic commercials. But for me to assume that if I just talk my doctor into giving me some Ozempic, that I'd be a great dancer, well, this is probably false reasoning on my part. I don't think they're great dancers because they take Ozempic. I think they're probably really great dancers because they're really great dancers and they were hired to do the commercial. So a lot of what we see online or on TV, or we've got a friend, and the friend's circumstances, again, they don't tell you, like the gambler never tells you how much they lost, they just tell you how much they won. They'll say, well, I have all this, and my lawyer put me on. Well, good grief, they may have $28 million worth of property. They may own property all over North America and other places. They may have some special circumstances with their family. So again, you come in and you say, this is my situation. I use the doctor analogy. They'll say, well, can you look at my old will and I said, well, no. I'm going to be like your doctor. I'm going to get you to come in. I'm going to take your blood pressure as of today. Unfortunately, we're going to get you on the scale, and we're going to ask you, how you're feeling, and we're going to ask you not 10 years ago or 20 years ago or how we think you might be feeling 30 years from now. I was shocked. I went to see the doctor the other day and got up on the scale, and she announced, I thought rather loudly, how big I am. And my response was, that sounds right. And she stopped me and she said, nobody says that. And I said, nobody says that. What kind of a culture do I live in when somebody says, this is how much you weigh? And I go, no, that's your opinion. That's, what do you mean it's her opinion?
I don't identify it that way.
Right.
Today.
Yes.
You didn't let me take my shoes off.
Right. And write down that I'm 6'5", So, but the reality of that and that objectivity, because if I'm sitting on my couch and somebody says, how you doing? I'll say, great.
Sure.
Go to the doctor, they take some blood, they look at the results, they weigh me, they take my blood pressure, they listen to my respiratory system. That objectivity varies sometimes dramatically with the subjectivity of how well I think I'm doing.
Well, and you find things you didn't already know about.
Yes.
I think there is a natural tendency for us to want to simplify things and feel like we got a firm handle and a grasp on what's going on. But unlike, on Saturday afternoon, you can listen to all the retirement shows.
Yes.
Okay, about, oh, you need an annuity, or you don't touch an annuity, do this, okay? And the fact of the matter is that your case is special. Yeah. And that's not a woke thing. In the law, we have general rules, okay? And you talk to people and say, well, the general rule is we don't let people move the kids to Nebraska without the other parent and that kind of thing, right? That's the general rule, and there's 52 exceptions to that rule. Exactly. Okay? And the same thing happens in probate. Yeah. Or any other area of the law. And part of what you want a professional to do is find the right fit for you. Okay? A one-size-fits-all is terrible. Yes. Okay? Have you ever bought clothes that says one-size-fits-all? Well, it doesn't fit me, I guarantee you.
And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of adjustment. Sometimes it's like, well, it almost fits, but here's why your situation varies a little bit, and we go through that. I got into some poison ivy or oak or sumac at one point. It was just miserable for about the better part of a week. Finally went in to see my doctor, and the doctor basically said, so you didn't call me a week ago. I could have saved you 3 or 4 days of misery, shoot me with some steroids. And he said, by the way, next time you get into this stuff, your body's alarm system has already been triggered, right? And so it's going to be worse next time. So next time I have a feeling that you'll call me beforehand. So here's the problem. people don't feel like they have, again, who would you have a relationship with if you downloaded forms? So they don't feel like they have a relationship with somebody. So instead of just calling me and me saying to them, and this happens all the time, hey, Mr. Bailey, my loved one passed away. She had done her will with you. And I'll say, first of all, I'm sorry. And how are you doing? And how long's it been? And so if you've got a death certificate and you've got the original will, let's arrange to sit down and let's talk our way through this. Because at this point, I don't know if we're going to need to probate that will. Mm-hmm. I don't know what she owned or what she owed or how she passed or any of these circumstances. So there's three things that may happen. One is we may look at it and I say, I can't from my conversation understand that there's anything we need to do with this will. Mm-hmm. Okay, the powers of attorney have passed away as that sweet lady passed away. So keep the will, keep track of this, and then I remind them, and I wish everybody out there would just put that posted on their mirror. There's a 4-year statute of limitations on probating these wills after somebody passes away. And I get the call all the time. Well, something came up and we want to sell the place. Well, when did your dad die? Well, he died in 2016. Well, now we're going on 10 years. We've blown past that, and while, again, there are exceptions, I love that. That's how you practice law. Anybody could learn the rule. It's the 17 major and 56 minor exceptions that are hard to remember. So
that's why the book is so big.
Yes, the books are so big, and everybody has such a loving attitude in the legal education area. But part of that challenge is if you felt like you knew somebody, and how would you know them? How would you know somebody that you downloaded a form from? How would you know? So develop a relationship, not because you're always in trouble with the law or you're always having to run to the lawyer, but you lose a loved one. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that you trusted to pick up the phone and call? And that's increasingly important. I was thrilled out of my mind to get an AC guy that I could trust. Thrilled to have a plumber, thrilled to have a mechanic that I could trust. You know the old, I know a guy?
Right.
Well, sometimes the guy's a gal, but I know a guy, I know a gal. Wonderful. Same thing with us. Pick up the phone, call. You usually have to leave a message because I'm busy doing high profile celebrity meet and greets with the likes of Keith Spencer. But go ahead and do that, and then we can talk through it and I can say, oh, okay. Well, let's sit down and look at this and see what we need to do. But when you don't go to the doctor, when you don't go get your teeth cleaned and have the dentist check, when you let the statute of limitations blow by, when you think, well, I'm sure the IRS is a loving, charitable organization, so I don't need a CPA, it always gets worse. None of this stuff cures itself. And so go ahead and reach out to somebody that you have a relationship with. And again, most of these phone calls where somebody comes in, they don't last 5 minutes.
Right.
It's not that big a deal. And it's not
well, and at Bailey and Gallion, we have forever offered free interviews for most appointments. And I'll tell you that many people who come to see me, I tell them, not to worry, you've done everything right. You might want to think about this in the future, but you don't need a lawyer. You don't need my services. Good luck to you. It's working great. I didn't charge them anything. I gave them some peace of mind, and they know in the future if something comes up, they could pick up the phone and come call me or come see me, and they don't have anything at risk. And it makes their life so much easier. So many of the times we don't have to do anything. No. We're just giving counsel. And so I would encourage folks
I'll help them shop.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. I don't do this, but I know someone who does.
Absolutely. Or even if I do it and I hear somebody and I say, you know what, that's in such and such county. I do practice there at times, but really do check with somebody that's in that county. And a lot of times they'll call back, and I think it's a mistake by these smaller town lawyers to do this, but it's like, okay, They want to charge me $1,500 more than you do, Mr. Bailey, even including you running down there. And I'll say, well, okay, this is about how much your estate planning should cost. This is how much probate should cost. And I'll tell them this, if they quote you less than this, they may not know what they're doing. And if they quote you more than this amount, there's a possibility that they got lots of work and don't really need it. And again, you don't really want to hire a lawyer that's not busy, but you also don't want to hire a lawyer that's so busy that they raise the fees in order to try to keep everything square.
That's true. Yeah. You do want to, I think, shop around a little bit. That's one thing the internet is good for, is you can look up some people's credentials, and you'll see that, you know, Mr. Bailey's been doing probate work for 30 years and well respected and known by everybody. It's not some, I did three probates in the last decade. I got an idea what I'm doing. Nothing like that. You do want to talk to someone who does it regularly and can give you some confidence. But the other thing is, find someone you trust. The man who recruited me to come to Fort Worth 35 years ago was a stellar lawyer, Bob Decker. And a lot of the real power brokers in this town, their attitude was, I don't make an important decision without talking to Mr. Decker first. And if you can develop a relationship with an attorney, a CPA, a doctor, who you trust, and you could pick up the phone and for a nominal charge call them and run an idea by them, it's worth its weight in gold.
It's a whole lot less stressful way to live your life.
So if you find yourself in a circumstance, don't be afraid to call us. You know, unfortunately, when Mr. Bailey and I see people, frequently it's not on their best day. They're either contemplating a family crisis, or someone has passed away, or someone's health is failing and they're having to jump through some hoops. And having someone who you feel comfortable with that you can talk to can be a real comfort.
Absolutely. That's kind of why we keep doing this. Because helping people is a whole lot better way to spend your day. And it takes me just as much time to listen and be courteous and try to give you the best answers I can as it does to try to do something else. We're already on the clock. We might as well help you.
So give us a call at Bailey & Gallion. We're easy to find. We're one of the largest consumer law firms in the state and the official law firm sponsor of the Texas Rangers. Go Rangers, and give us a call. We'll see you next time.